Hello, everybody. This is Joanna Streeter with New World Encounters. I have today with me Dmitry Shishkin, and I'm very happy to have the opportunity to ask a few interesting questions to Dmitry. Hello, Dmitry. Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thank you. Hello.
Dmitry, you help companies to do digital better. So you do content innovation, digital transformation, culture change, and anything on the intersection of these areas. And I would be very curious to learn a little bit more about your background. And I would like to understand, where does your love for content and audience engagement come from?
Well, thank you for your question. It's actually very relevant to anything that we do, because you need to be able to relate to different parts of organization if you want to change anyone. And I was lucky enough and privileged enough to be on the intersection of all of these areas in my life. So I'm a journalist by profession, and I used to be an editor for many, many years before. But very early on in my career, I was really interested in trying to figure out how to connect with the audiences better. And especially when we started developing our digital skills at the BBC, I was very interested in any type of things that digital offered, the formats, the audience engagement, the metrics, how products are delivered, and all of that. So, sometimes more often than not, you will have editors who are really strong editors. You will have technologists who are great technologists. You will have wonderful project managers who can deliver lots of things. But every company actually needs people who understand all of those aspects at the same time, because they will need to be able to connect all these things together. They will need to be able to translate the language of different organizational sides into one language, so people actually have the same shared vision and mission of what you try to achieve. And this is really important, because I've seen time and time again when you would have a really great project on paper, but it would fall flat because of the one of those three aspects. Either the editorial was not right, or the product was not really thought through well or connected with editorial, or the delivery itself was wrong. So that intersection between content on the one hand, product on the other hand, and organizational as the third side of the triangle, with data sitting at the very center of that triangle, is exactly what I am very passionate about.
Okay, so you say content and product are one. I love this idea. Can you tell us more, get a little bit more in depth into how does this bridge between the two functions look like?
Well, let's put it this way: the audience doesn't care. I think it's only us who are really thinking hard about all of these things and how these things are separate and everything. But if you think about the most successful digital products out there when it comes to product and content, we can talk about Spotify, we can talk about Netflix, we can talk about any really great e-commerce websites where you have a lot of content on it. But the audience itself doesn't really say, well, I actually like that part of it, but I don't really like the content side of it, or I like the navigation, but I don't like the films. It just never happens. You either watch it and you enjoy the whole experience, and they have been incredibly successful in fine-tuning and uniting those things together. So one thing cannot exist without the other. Whereas with editorial publications, the news publication, the lifestyle publications, only now we see successful examples of companies like New York Times, Washington Post, The Guardian, Financial Times, Economist, who actually have started on the road of user-centric work many years ago. And I think it's really important, because without that, you will be creating something that doesn't really contribute to your business goals or business objectives, or your business objectives are in complete conflict with your editorial proposition. So effectively, what I mean by content and product is that you really need to spend a lot of time thinking hard about your product market fit. And the product market fit for any startup is a really important thing, but actually for any organization that behaves digitally and is willing, aims at success on digital platforms, you really need to have that product market fit figured out very, very nicely and very early on.
Well, let's take this a little bit deeper. Maybe you can just give us an example of a very good project or a project you are very proud of.
Well, let's put it this way. I have been obsessed with user needs for content, and my product counterparts have been obsessed with user needs for product much earlier than majority of media organizations have started even thinking that user needs are equally important for content as they are for product. So when we developed this really interesting, innovative model of user needs based commissioning at the BBC and started developing it, it probably was one of the most important things in my career to date. And we can talk a little bit about how it was developed and why it was important. But what really was even more important is that how many companies have started moving on to that model themselves after that. So when I joined Culture Trip, I was delighted to see, and hopefully I was hired there because they knew my background in user needs, and they had very specific structure around user needs based commissioning for travel content at that time. And then I started collecting those user needs models, and Vogue International experimented with it. Wall Street Journal has a model of user needs. TRT, the Turkish broadcaster, has a model of user needs. All of these companies, they realize that once you are very, very committed to satisfying user needs, both on product and content side, wonderful things happen because you are immediately getting rid of all the rubbish that, how you would know from your experience that majority of media organizations are drowning in their own waste in terms of overproduction, that they produce so much stuff and only maybe 20% of it really is impactful. But when you have user needs, everything that you do starts with user needs. Like your first newsroom conversation in the morning meeting is not about, we should do that story, but actually how we should do that story and what user need it is going to satisfy. And that's incredibly liberating way of thinking. And even when we developed that model at the BBC, we were launching 12 new teams around the world at that time. A Serbian team, Korean team, several teams for India and Africa. And we even launched their products, their digital presence, based on user needs model. So actually the sites themselves were was signaling to the audience that this content is about this user need and that user need and that user need. And I think we're only starting with this, because if you start adding data analysis into that model, then you really can optimize. And that's what our product friends have been doing all the time. They have been optimizing since the start of the internet.
Yeah, that sounds really very interesting. So user needs is very important to analyze them, but you also say that focus and purpose, they are extremely important. Can you go a little bit deeper into this topic?
They are completely connected, actually, because if your vision and mission is about your product market fit, right? So it's about why you exist in the market, what kind of niche you want to occupy. And we all read Strategy blog by Ben Thompson, and we know that he once put this wonderful graph where on digital, wonderful things happen between quality on the one hand and focus on the other hand, in that axis between those two things. And wonderful thing in digital is that there are myriad of niches, as he says. And because of that, once you know what you want to, once you really zoom in very hard on what you want to become known for, and you provide the best quality content in that particular niche, you will thrive. You will really thrive, and you will be able to optimize your content, not create content that is not needed by anyone. So, and the reason why this is important is that once you understand the product market fit, you can translate it into the vision of your company and the mission of your company, and then you almost have this wonderful feedback loop, because one thing contributes to the other. And why is this important? It is important for internal alignment. It is important for internal prioritization. It is important for your marketing differentiation between competitors. And it's also important for the internal cohesion of the team, because we used to have this really useful litmus test. It used to be called CEO stopping somebody in the corridor litmus test. When the CEO would stop somebody, and that somebody could be a junior designer, a commissioning editor, a software engineer, and would ask them the same group of questions. What are we for? What is our product market fit? What is our mission? Like, are we all pulling to the same direction? You don't want immediate verbatim answers. Like nobody is asking people to just learn these things by heart, but anyone in the company needs to know what the company is trying to achieve. Because if on the level of different silos in the company, and the companies operate in silos, and our job is to break them and to make them work collaboratively between those silos. But you have technology, product, including UX, sales, commercial guys, data people, content people. If they all have different vision of what the company is trying to achieve, then the company is not going to be effective. And that's why vision and mission are connected to user needs and connected to product market fit at the same time.
Absolutely true. Actually, this is the universal formula for success. Yeah, not only for media, but also for the corporate.
I remember the time when at the BBC, I was digital editor for 41 different language teams at the BBC. So my job was, I was not responsible for what they were outputting every day, but my job was to help them to output better things and be better digital at this, in all aspects of digital at the same time. And I used to remember, well, I remember how I used to speak to all the heads of those teams, heads of African teams, Asian teams, European teams. And I would say, you need to have a vision statement and mission statement for your team. You need to have that in one sentence so everybody understands how you're different in the market. And without that, it will be very, very bland. Your offer is going to be very similar to the offer of 10 or 15 other media organizations. And the earlier you differentiate yourself, the better it is going to be for your audience relationship long term.
Great. I have another question. I would like to take you in another area, because I read a few of your articles, and you were talking there about the synthetic age. Can you explain, what do you mean by the synthetic age?
I'm glad that you asked me that question, because I think we in media do not talk enough about that. So synthetic media, or synthetic age, is upon us. It's the age where synthetic technologies, or technologies created with machine learning and AI, are going to be omnipresent. They're going to be cheap. They're going to be mass readily available. They're going to be almost like plug and play type of technologies. And I think that we as media organizations need to understand what is our take on this, how we're going to be treating that. And I need to be very clear. I am a very big supporter of synthetic technologies overall. But I say it with a big caveat that deep fakes aside, and the synthetic media contributing to disinformation, misinformation, and our efforts to combat that our efforts are very, very important. But I think when we talk about deep fakes and misinformation and all of that, because of that, synthetic media actually gets a very bad name because of that inside the media organizations. And I am of the opinion that we are missing the point, because we can, if we grasp that technology well, that technology can help us do all sorts of wonderful things. It will be great for audience engagement. It will be great for your growth of the audience around the world, because I'm thinking, like, let's imagine when the BBC, so we had 27 teams at the BBC for different languages. Then we decided to launch another, dozen of them. But what if another media organization decides to launch 100 languages at the same time? I totally understand that your audience growth is going to be directly linked with original content, with audience relevance, and all of that type of stuff, which is important. But just for the sake of argument, imagine if you don't need to hire the whole team to run a video-based service for half an hour a day in a language which otherwise you needed to have to hire 10 people, for example, for it. So you can create an English base, and then you can actually translate it, and you can have virtual presenters who are going to be created from scratch, who would look and sound exactly like the audience, targeted audience members. I'm very excited about this. I think it's a very, it's not about, oh, robots will come and take over and people will lose their jobs. No, it's not about that. It's actually about nobody's losing the jobs. If anything, new technologies will make media companies create new jobs to make sure that those technologies actually are helpful. So I'm excited about this.
Wonderful. Actually, you're so right. Machine help is very important, and human intelligence is also very much needed. I just give you the example from a corporate working in consumer goods globally. Yeah. And if they do a video, they need sometimes to adapt it to the local market, because local markets work differently. Yeah. So you need really a combination of the two. Yeah.
Well, we have seen those examples, and I am looking very attentively at the synthetic media market since I started being interested in this. And the opportunities of personalized messages, of individual messages in dozens of languages, especially if you are multilingual, multinational corporate structure. You will be able to actually relate, like the training aspect of it. Imagine you can actually scale your training and deliver it in your own language with your own kind of colloquialisms and slang and everything else. And it would be a very, very big, important part of that kind of deck of tools in the future. And, 6 years ago at the BBC, I worked on the project, I led the project of trying to automatically translate English language videos in Russian and Japanese, not touching the video itself. So not actually importing videos and downloading videos, but actually only translating English text into a vernacular language automatically, extracting it first automatically, then converting it into another language automatically, and then assigning artificial synthetic voices automatically to each paragraph, and having exactly the same video at the end without actually nobody editing it, all automatically. And it was a very controversial thing at that time, because the journalist would say, oh, the quality will be bad, who would want it? But actually, we went to the Japanese audiences at that time, and they said, well, if this allows you to give us 20 videos a day rather than 3 videos a day, of course we would like to see it. And especially if you frame it in a way saying, created with the help of automated technologies, why not?
Well, this brings me to the final question. Actually, you answered it partially. How do you envision the future of news media?
Well, there is one particular thing I'm really excited about. So this is about personalized understanding of what each individual user might need, and we already are working towards that in the personalization and curation areas of media work. But I'm very interested in how technology can help journalists make better decisions, how technology can help journalists optimize the content that they otherwise would have created, but it would not have worked. So anything about how you can connect data points, audience user needs, audience reaction, distribution models, all in one go. This is a really exciting area, and I can't kind of wait to see new initiatives in that area. So that's point number one. Point number one, synthetic media. We spoke about this already. So this is kind of a really big thing in the future as well. And I genuinely think that I'm not sure about you, but I'm getting maybe 20 newsletters a week, right? And they all are about something very, very niche and very particular. And I actually am spending more time reading those that I'm reading, kind of established newspaper websites or broadcast websites or digital first organizations, because they are about niche and quality. So exactly what we mentioned earlier.
Yeah, wonderful. So, I mean, it's exactly the curated information that you want to rely on. One more question, because I'm very curious now. Which is your favorite newsletter? Would you like to share this with us?
So I like Tortoise newsletter from London. So a digital startup led by James Harding, and I like that they started differentiating their newsletters from daily news to actually they have a wonderful newsletter about all the big tech companies. They also have a really great newsletter about the climate change and net zero aims. I like the morning briefing by New York Times. Not very original here, but I think they're giving me exactly what I want on the day, and they give me a really great palette of everything. And they don't, without knowing it, they actually are satisfying my different user needs without even signaling those user needs themselves. I think they understand how to send those newsletters right. And then you've got some, I read it like you. I read a lot of industry specific publications.
Dmitry, this was a great insight. Thank you so much for your time and for the wonderful learnings you gave us on the way. And I hope to see you soon in November at our workshop series on product development. And yeah, stay ahead of the game with outstanding product development. Thank you, Dmitry.
Thank you very much for your attention.